ethics have always been skewed. Case in point, the Varsity on February 24, 2025 that explains. To pioneer today's medical practices, enslaved black women have been victims of gruesome, dehumanizing experiments. But we know this, just like many of us know the name of James Marion Sims, also known as the father of gynecology. Yet, NPR on February 7, 2017 reveals the countless enslaved women on whom he experimented upon are invisible in his shadow. And while it'd be easy to assume that the mothers of gynecology were lost to history, that's not entirely true. In fact, the New York Times on June 9, 2023 reveals there are 3 names that demand cultural, medical, and personal reckoning: Anarcha, Betsy, and Lucy. Enslaved women who, based solely on the color of their skin, changed the medical field as we know it. Activist Michelle Broder tells the Southern Law Poverty Center on March 1st, 2025, anyone who's had a pap smear has been touched by their legacy. Yet, we still don't talk about them. And why would we? So few of us even know their names. Business Insider on January 15th, 2025 furthers, Anarcha, Betsy, and Lucy single-handedly created opportunities for Sims, solidifying his career and opening the door to medical advancements that transcend gender and even race. It's high time that we, as black women, begin to reclaim our stolen history. So let's outline the key players, impacts of Sims' experiments, and its implications. Because as J.C. Hallman writes in his 2023 book, Say Anarcha, black women have always been the center of modern-day gynecology. The New York Times introduces something of a paradox. Much of what's known about Anarcha, Betsy, and Lucy is through Sims' own studies and memoirs, and he's a most unreliable narrator. Therefore, to untangle this relationship, let's identify the key players, starting with Sims, and then turning to Anarcha, Betsy, and Lucy themselves. First, all it took for Sims to become a doctor was a 3-month course and a year-long internship at Lancaster, North Carolina. Once his first and only 2 patients mysteriously died, the History Channel on January 1st, 2025 reveals, Sims moved his practice to Montgomery, Alabama, where he built his reputation among rich and white plantation owners for his groundbreaking but dehumanizing experiments. The National Library of Medicine in 2019 furthers, Sims founded an 8-bed hospital where he took care of enslaved individuals with more serious medical conditions, one of which was a vesical vaginal fistula, a common 19th century complication of childbirth that resulted in a tear between the bladder and bowels, thus jeopardizing the ability to reproduce. And as it just so happens, 3 women in particular were suffering from this condition. Next, Anarcha, Betsy, and Lucy were enslaved women from different plantations. The New York Historical in 2025 explains, following childbirth, each woman developed a vesical vaginal fistula, which caused them to lose control of their bladder and bowels. Naturally, their enslavers wanted a cure. Therefore, in 1844, the 3 of them sought the advice of James Marion Sims, who believed he could cure Anarcha, Betsy, and Lucy. So they struck a deal. Lease the girls to Sims for 6 months, guaranteeing complete control over their bodies. And it was unlikely that these women even consented to these procedures, because as NPR reminds us, free consent was not obtainable to those who were not free. Sims had no previous interest or training in treating female bodies, yet the Moore Campus in 2025 reveals a coincidental discovery about positioning patients during surgery led him to believe that a cure was possible and that it would make his mark on the medical industry. Let's discuss the impacts of Sims' experiments, both during and after. Lucy was the first to undergo Sims' experimental operation. The New York Historical contextualizes. As observers packed the operation room, Lucy, who was only 18 at the time, was restrained to the table so that her movements didn't disrupt the operation. The surgery lasted nearly an hour, of which she was never given anesthesia. In fact, she was conscious for every moment of it. And when the operation failed, Sims turned to Betsy, who experienced similar treatment and complications, and finally Anarcha, whose baby was delivered by Sims himself, suffered the same fate. The 2020 Journal of Intensive Care and Anesthesia explains, 2 years into failed experimentations, Sims was cast into professional isolation. Yet, he writes in his 1884 memoir, "I cannot trust these doctors, so I've trained them to assist me." Next, once his white male assistants quit, Sims began training Anarcha, Betsy, and Lucy to be his assistants during each other's operations. After all, with medical conditions that made them social outcasts, what other options did they have? For 5 years, Sims practiced his experiments on a total of 12 different women, but only Anarcha, Betsy, and Lucy were named in his report. The 2019 Journal of the National Medical Association reveals, in 1849, Sims performed his 30th surgery on Anarcha. But this time, she made a full recovery. After perfecting his techniques, Sims closed his practice and moved up north. Anarcha, Betsy, and Lucy were all returned back to their enslavers after 5 years of absence and experimentation. The 1993 Journal of Medical Ethics contends, while Sims' story is important in understanding contemporary medicine, it also serves as a cautionary tale, as it pertains to both race and gender, prompting 2 implications: medical mistrust and a reclamation of history. First, Black women have a complicated relationship with medicine and care. Business Insider explains, during the 19th century, white medical professionals, Sims included, held the racist idea that Black people had a higher pain threshold than white people. As a result, Sims' influence on modern-day gynecology has contributed to a history of unfair reproductive medical care for Black women. The 2020 International Journal for Equity and Health explains, health inequities can be understood through a framework informed by both historical and contemporary inequities, which identifies systemic issues and cultural and institutional racism as basic causes of health disparities. Meaning, from medical negligence to microaggressions to mistreatments to pregnancy-related deaths, it is impossible for Black women to outrun the racist experiments conducted by Sims 175 years ago. Its impacts exist within our very DNA. Finally, the Southern Poverty Law Center explains, on a quiet street in Montgomery stands Anarcha, Betsy, and Lucy, and a monument called the Mothers of Gynecology. Artist Michelle Broder explains, these statues are imbued with meaningful and painful symbolism, heralding a long-standing tradition of reclaiming our lost history. Afropunk on January 5th, 2025 reveals, describes this phenomenon as a tradition of resistance, where contemporary Black artists build upon their predecessors' legacy while navigating the unique challenges of the present day. When I started this activity, I realized I could make art from my own forgotten history. I gave speeches on African American herbalism, the Tignon laws, and the mothers of gynecology. Meaningful, painful legacies erased. But our Black art will always stand alongside pain, not in spite of it. So continue asking yourself, who is missing from this story? Because uncovering what has long been buried can reveal something beautiful. Anarcha, Betsy, and Lucy create a chilling foundation for modern-day gynecology. And investigating the key players' impacts and its implications is a necessary first step. Because as J.C. Holman contends, it's time we excavate the stories of the young enslaved Black women who changed history. Only
forgotten by it.